Welcome to the Healing Broken Families podcast, where I host conversations on divorce, parental alienation, and high conflict personalities. I am delighted today to be interviewing Miss Veronica, master coach, ordained minister, and certified facilitator. She provides her clients with expertise in the areas of relationships, empowerment, and finding our purpose. I'm Barbara, I'm your coach, and welcome, Veronica.
Thank you, Barbara, for having me. Such a pleasure to be here.
Yes, I'm really excited because I know we're going to be bringing a lot of value to our listeners today as we speak about marriage and even healthy hookups.
Oh.
Yeah, I love that. I love that term healthy hookup because it's just such an unusual term when you think about what a hookup is. To shift it into something more positive is kind of exciting.
Yes, it is.
So tell me, what is a healthy hookup? What's a healthy hookup, Veronica?
Well, a healthy hookup in marriage is where individuals or the couple are aligning their values. They're enjoying, they want to be together. And they're not coming together for the wrong reasons. Let's see. And that's about really it, mutually loving each other, mutually respecting one another, being authentic and being honest and truthful in marriage is a lot of the issues that are opposite of what goes on in some marriages that are not healthy.
Yeah, not healthy. And it's helpful to hear what is healthy because sometimes we forget what a really healthy, loving, committed relationship looks like. So I like that you touched on the alignment of values.
Yes, and you're committed to each other, and you decide that there's no exit, that there's no getting out. We're going to stay here through thick and thin. Because really, marriage is not that we're happy. It really draws us together to connect with someone else and learn how to grow in our own character and personality and all of the things that go in when you're in a relationship with someone.
Really interesting. So no exit plan on marriage. And so with over, I like that you said that because with over half of marriages in North America ending in divorce, it's great. It's great to hear that you can actually say, hey, there's no exit. We're committed. Here is what I hear you saying. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it's a covenant. Is that right?
Yes, it's not only a covenant, but even in marriage, we plan and we set goals for our careers. And I believe in today's time, we need to set goals, talk about our backgrounds, figure out what things we are lacking or desire in a relationship. And even from the standpoint of, let's define what you think love is, and let's define what I think love is. And then together, let's develop our love definition and how it's going to operate in our relationship or in our committed marriage.
Okay. And what's important about doing that, Veronica?
You stay focused. You're, in life, in our careers, we're so purpose driven. And we have to be purpose driven in our marriage. Purpose driven because in some marriages where there's children involved, we have to be able to show and represent what healthy looks like. We have to represent to our children why mom and dad is together and what it takes. Marriage is sacrifice. Each person has to come in giving 100. There's no 50-50 myth that is there, and in the sacrifice, it may not be reciprocal. Some days you're on your best, some days I'm not on mine, but I come in and I fill in that gap. or are filling that void. We're working together to make sure that what we want and what we desire on a daily basis is met. And that is why it is so important that when you decide to say I do to someone, that you really mean it, that it really comes from the heart, and that you're willing to take the good, the bad, and the things that you don't even know are to come over the years. Because that, we get together initially with someone and we show them our representative. We're nice, we're sweet, we're kind, Yeah. And once we get married, we say, oh, he changed, she changed. Did that individual really change? Or those were some red flags in the relationship as it was growing and building that we just decide to cast them away and not look at them? But then now that we're living with someone on a daily basis, we see some things that may not be so intriguing as when we first met them and said, oh, I want him or I want her.
Yeah, that's such an important message, because I've recently read that people are actually happier in relationships, in married relationships. They're actually more fulfilled. And I thought that was interesting because so many people are divorced. So it's great, again, to get that reminder. And I guess I'd ask you even to remind us, what makes marriage important in the first place, to society, to just in general? Why is marriage relevant in this modern day and age?
Well, I'm also, you mentioned that I'm a minister, and in scripture, in Ephesians, it talks about two is better than one. Then when I'm weak, the other may be strong. And so we're living a joyous life together, ensuring that we each fulfill the purpose that we were created to do and the purpose that we desire to do. But we're not doing it by ourselves. We have a companion that we give them, and you're not going to be with each other daily because, of course, we go to work. We run errands separately and things like that, but you're also allowing each other to room and space to grow to who they are and bring that into the marriage. We're bringing in healthy things in our marriage. That's why it's important to talk about your background. What was it like with your parents? If you're from a divorced parent family, what did that makeup look like? And now, what parts of those things were good and what parts of those things were not so good, that we really don't want to create that same generational family traditions or whatever it was in our current life. Maybe back then it worked, but in today's society, it doesn't work. So we have to constantly prepare ourselves, communicate, talk about it. That's why I said make goals. Part of that goal driven and being goal driven in marriage is talking about your background and being honest about it, and discovering for the two of you from the ground up what is going to be your foundation that sustains your marriage to be what you want it, what you desire it to be, and for it to look like what you always imagined it to be. And even as we've grown and discarded some of those things that we had, because now we're mature in marriage, we have to decide what things are going to work for us, what things are not. When family is involved, as far as our children and grandchildren, we have to decide what we want them to witness. So we have to be able to display and be loving, kind, sweet-spirited. And when we have a healthy marriage, they can witness what healthy looks like, and they will know without a doubt what unhealthiness looks like in a marriage. A lot of times, people are repeating the same unhealthy things in marriages from their families. And that's why we call it from generation to generation, this is going on. So it's all a matter of teaching our children, and even in our marriage, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, and what things we need to grow, to change, and work at.
Mm. It's really inspiring. And I agree with you. It's so generational and amazing to see what happens when you shake the family tree. My mother was divorced and my grandmother was divorced, and it really does follow a lineage of inherited family trauma.
Yes. And speaking on the level of trauma, when you've gone through trauma, sometimes we go right into the same type of relationship. And part of that is because we never healed and got the right proper ways to heal, and the proper and sought out the proper resources and tools to heal us from that traumatic experience, to allow us to be healthy and able to not repeat that same trauma situation in our next relationship.
That's a really really valid point you just made. So valid. I love that. It's so important. And it's so important to take the time to heal so you don't repeat mistakes.
It's exactly, so often what we see, and this is attributing to some of the marriage, or the divorce in marriages as well, is the one individual, or it could even be both, coming together for the wrong reasons, and it may not be the proper time. May need to take a pause to wait it out and to see what other things they need to do to grow from that trauma, or to heal from that trauma, to get into the next relationship. So often we call that baggage. We take in some extra baggage in our marriages that don't really need to be. And sometimes we don't even recognize it. Someone else may recognize it, but we get offensive to it when they bring it up. But if we've gotten the proper counseling, coaching, utilize resources and tools and strategies for the next steps to building a new type of relationship that will be different from where you come out of the trauma from, then I think that's how we move right into a healthy marriage. But when we're bringing in all the old stuff and not growing and not learning into the next relationship, then that's why we create an environment that is toxic, unhealthy, and leads to another divorce. I don't think a lot of people realize, well, why have I been divorced 4 times?
Mm-hmm.
And when they think about it, and I had a conversation with someone, they said, you're right. I met this person when I was more vulnerable. I hadn't even healed from the other one, but because I felt like they were meeting a void that I was desiring at that time, that I thought, instead of building a friendship, I thought it was love. And I thought, oh, yes, we need to get married. But that's not always the case. Sometimes relationships are just long-lasting friendships, short-term friendships, and not really meant to be everlasting as far as what a committed marriage provides.
Oh, that's really beautiful. And it provides a lot of clarity when you imagine something beautiful for your marriage, which you said, and then imagine an everlasting love, but some people might just be friendships and nothing more, or temporary, or a season in your life.
Yes, and we're so quick to do the married things before we even walk down the aisle and say, I do. And even before you even get engaged with someone asking you, will you marry me? And these days, sometimes the women ask because the men are slow on their feet, But even however it goes, you should not do married things before you really have a commitment with the ring on the finger and with the ceremony, whether it's a lavish ceremony of a wedding with 1,000 guests or more, or even just going to the courthouse. because then you begin to settle, some situations that get together like that, then they're like, well, why you switch, why you change, why you want this now? You did it before we said I do, and I'm good just being with you for 10 years. And the other person's like, no, I've been with you for 10 years. I think now we need some kind of something to solidify, instead of the legalities of what the law of our community says, or our country say. I really want a commitment and a marriage that really solidifies that you're the one, I'm the one, and we're going to build a life together. Because when you don't have that commitment, it's easy to say, I'm out, I'm done, we're no more. That was the exit that I'm talking about. It's quick to exit,
right.
after that, if there's no really commitment,
Yeah.
My father told me, he said, marriage is an easy thing to get into, but it's very hard to get out of. And maybe people don't like the hard part. But what he said is, when you decide to get married, go in with the mindset that you're here to stay, and that you're going to work through all of those challenges that come and arise. Because if you stick to it and you both are going to work at it, you're going to find that you guys are going to grow and learn that you're stronger together than you are alone.
I think that's a really foundational message, and I find a lot of hope in it. And sometimes we just generally lose our belief that we can heal our relational wounds, some of those ones you were mentioning, and we keep making those mistakes, keep having, 1, 2, 3, 4 marriages, as you're saying. And then we're so frustrated. Like, why does this keep happening to me? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And is it really happening to you, or are you creating that environment for it to be happening? We have to take the blame. Things just don't happen. We have some role in it. And even in marriage, both parties have a role in it,
So a role and self-responsibility and self-accountability. I couldn't agree more with you, Veronica.
Yes. And I even would say, even when you decide to get married, it's good to have a mentor couple. And that is an older couple, and not by age, but that has gone through some things, some challenges, and they still stuck it out. And that they could provide you, the other couple, some wisdom, some strategies and tools that they use, especially if they have gone through some of the same similar concerns or issues. That would be a good thing to do, is to talk to someone else, not, whether it be a coach, a marriage counselor, but even just in your daily life, if you have a couple that it's really gone through some things and hung in there, and that could encourage you guys to stick to it and know that there is some healing on the other side of what you're now experiencing, but you got to be strong enough and willing to go through the process.
That's I think that's great advice, to be supported in your marriage. Absolutely. One of the things I keep hearing you say is investing the time to getting to know your partner before you get married. And I really, everything you're saying does resonate so deeply, because there is a lot of confusion in our world about these foundational messages, the importance of marriage. And we've kind of got all the steps, sometimes feels like they're all backwards, right? And then we're frustrated. So and I just read a tiny bit of your beautiful bio, and I know you've encouraged so many couples, so many women, so many couples and families in your journey as a master coach. And you've even worked and studied with Gary Chapman and his concept of the 5 languages of love.
Yes. The 5 love languages.
Thank you.
Yes. I love Gary Chapman. My husband and I facilitated a couples Bible study for our church. And my husband, which I call him the network king, we were actually going through one of his books. And my husband contacted Gary, and he agreed, and we had him on, at the time it was FaceTime, with our group. He talked to our group, and every couple had an opportunity to ask him a burning question that they were going through individually and personally. To how can they get through that, or what are some strategies or some tools? And he was able to offer that advice. So anything Gary Chapman, I'm all in for it.
Awesome.
So yeah, and so what he talks about in that in the book, he just talks about how it's so important to communicate, with our spouses, because it just gives and allows you to have better communication. And just so for your audience, some of the five languages that he talks about is like receiving gifts, physical touch, words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service. If we don't know our spouse's love language, we begin to miss each other. We won't connect, we and that's exactly what I did. I said, we miss each other because, for example, if you are a person that likes to touch, that likes the physical touch, we like to embrace, we like hugging, we like just sitting on the couch and watching TV, right? And maybe the other spouse might just be a person that just wants
acts of service.
Acts of service. Yes. Acts of service. If you're giving me gifts when I like acts of service, you're not really meeting my need. It does nothing for me.
Okay.
But if you give acts of service, if I'm working on a project, if I'm doing something in the house, and you just come up and say, hey, baby, can I assist you? That goes a long way, because that's what that person's love language is. Like, if he would just know to come help me, and he sees me struggling, he knows that my love language is acts of service, and then that's what you do. But if it's receiving gifts, don't give, the words of affirmation when they like to receive gifts to show your appreciation towards them. So when we are not meeting and connecting with our spouse's love language, we miss that connection. And what that does is it causes you, that's where the miscommunication comes. That's where the shutdown comes. That's where so many things boil over there with no one expressing exactly, what their needs are. So it's really a act of meeting each other's needs by discovering their love language.
That's so beautiful. And when I started this podcast, I was kind of surprised that I found that most people know, or just in general, I find most people know the Gary Chapman's work in the 5 love languages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I also find that it just really resonates. It resonates with men, actually. It's a very, very well-known solution-orientated book. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It resonates with both spouses. And you realize why I'm not connecting. When you read the book and you go through all of the steps, you hear what he has to say about the book, and then you start identifying those things that works, that are similar or that resonate with you. Then you start discovering, oh, wow, this is why I didn't respond, or this is why she didn't respond, because, oh my gosh, I didn't know acts of service goes a long way than trying to just spend quality time sitting here watching TV. That's not what you want to do. But if that's what I want to do, when I provide her acts of service, then she's going to give me the quality time that I need. So
Very
that makes the connection there.
And having your needs met. Because we all, none of us enjoy having our unmet needs. Unmet needs are not any fun most of the time.
No, and what happens with that, you don't know what your needs are until you start and you sit down and you read a book like from Gary Chapman, or you just talk with your mate, or talk with, once you just talk it out, getting to know them. You had mentioned earlier how reading my bio, and I talk about getting to know the person for who they are, and that's before you start sleeping with someone. Get to know who they really are. Observe them, spend time with them, go in their environment. You let them go in your environment. You'll discover a whole lot of things there, and you'll realize, yes, I want to be a part of this person's life, or no, I don't want to be a part of this person's life, because you find those things that may not really align with some of your values. So you may not want to do it. But then the more you talk and get to know this individual, you can become best friends. You become, you can fall in love, and then it leads to marriage. And then you can say, wow, I fell in love with my best friend and I married my best friend. And and because it's my best friend, I'm going to mutually respect this individual. I'm going to be vulnerable, because marriage causes vulnerability. I have to be honest. I have to be truthful, and I have to be authentic. I have to be who I said that I am to this individual.
Wow, I have like goosebumps all over me because
Oh no!
I do. It's a very special message that we don't hear in popular culture very often, and it offers a lot of hope and clarity. Just when we're out there looking for our relationship, our special person, our future husband or future wife. So it's really, really nice and very comforting.
Yes. And the thing about looking for that spouse or looking for that significant other, how about learn how to be the person that you would want someone to love and want to say, get to know you and want to marry you? How about spending time with just getting to know yourself, so that when you do meet someone, you can express very candidly, what I like, what I don't like, not so much what I like or don't like, but here's what I'm looking for to operate with who I am. And that's how you connect. So often we don't do that initially, we don't do that. And, but even if you don't, getting together, I would say having marriage counseling, or doing mentoring coaching like I do, will help you get to discover the individual, grow, and learn the foundation of what love really is. And so many times we don't really know what roles and responsibilities are in marriage. So you identify some roles and responsibilities. You would realize what your coming together means. You would identify some red flags, and red flags are just those things that need some work on before we really connect and say, I do, right? Doesn't say that you cannot be the couple that you're meant to be, or that you can't get married. It's just meaning, before we say, let's work this part out so it won't be a problem along in our marriage, whether it's an addiction, whether it's a financial situation, whether it's something emotional, or whatever it is. There's so many factors in there. If you work those out prior to saying I do, then you can create an environment that is healthy for your marriage.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, Veronica, I know that you're so passionate about the subject of marriage, and it's a big, big subject, but we are approaching the top of the hour. So I just wanted to invite you in this last moment to share any any golden bits of wisdom, and you've shared a lot, but anything that needs to be said that hasn't been said, or any healing truths about marriage that you think might benefit someone listening right now?
Yeah. Absolutely. I would say, no matter what you all go through, no matter what a couple is going through, when you take the time to really work it out, it can be worked out. When you spend time with each other, when you have open communication, when you're being honest, when you're being truthful, when you're being authentic, and most importantly, being vulnerable. And vulnerability doesn't mean that you're weak, but vulnerability means that I'm willing to allow this individual to discover the whole me. And I'm willing to allow this person to discover the whole me so that they know me, I know them. When we say we're married, they would know that you're not married to your enemy. They know that you're married to someone who loves you back, right? Mm-hmm. You're married to someone who's your best friend because you've already discovered these things. Right. And most importantly, you'll know the individual's character and how they might respond and react when challenges come along. And then just finding ways to have the stick-to-itiveness to stay in the marriage, to stay in the commitment. So often we want to run at the first sign of trouble, whether it be communication, finances, or sex, right? But how about turning them positive and allowing those three key things that causes divorce to be the positives to secure your marriage?
What a great paradigm shift. What a great mindset shift to do that. It's, again, so much more hope in that than calling it quits. Because
yes,
you are going to encounter one of those three stumbling blocks, I would imagine, of sex, finances, and
communication. Those are like the three key things. So it's, and for the person that considers themselves an introvert or very quiet or whatever, your spouse should be able to get you out of that. And that's part of that vulnerability. For some women and for some men that are introverts that are marrying, it is the role of the other spouse is to make sure that you just encourage them, to let them know that what they have to say and what they're doing in this marriage is valued. Allowing them to realize that you don't have to be silenced here because we're both in this together. This is our marriage. So we both have an equal role to make sure that it becomes what we want it to be. It's not one person in the marriage deciding all of the things that go on. We both have to sit down and communicate about those things.
It's a great place to just say, if you were to embark on that, then marriage would become a gift, a real long-lasting generational gift, potentially.
Yes. And then just think about the paradigm. How about you be the person in your family to make that paradigm shift? We don't have to repeat, our generational legacy of things that was in our family line. It takes somebody to stand up and say, no more. Or, how can this look differently so that the future children of our family can see something different?
Absolutely. Because the children are looking at us. They're watching and just almost like absorbing it all, taking it all in. Like,
children are sponges. They take everything.
They do.
And so that's why, some people are very open with no boundaries and they say, oh, we tell our children everything. But in your marriage, you really should not be telling your children everything, for that simple reason that they're sponges. They take it on, and the emotional weight becomes theirs when it shouldn't be. Husbands and wives should take the responsibility to discuss really serious challenges outside of the sight of the children. Work it out there, because in time, as they get older, you might explain some of those issues or concerns when they deal with challenges of building friendships along the way in life. But you don't, your marriage is not an open marriage to the children to know every intricate things that should be private for the two of you.
Yeah, very good point. They have little shoulders and adults have big shoulders, and we're big and they're little in a way. Yeah.
And our children's mind is still maturing. They can't take on all of the pressures and the stresses that the adult mind goes through. And so often we put that on them. We wonder why our children are insecure, because we create that insecurity when they don't know what's happening. Is mom coming home? Is dad coming home? Are they going to get a divorce because they argued or had a misunderstanding? Or are they going to come back together and share with you? We had a disagreement, but that wasn't the sign of divorce. We're not going to do that. That's not going to be a part of our family line.
Yeah, I like that so much, because there's so many children, like you said, that are insecure and that also suffer from anxiety. So you've really brought some very powerful points up that we so often just forget in the busyness and stressfulness of our own lives. So
yes, we have to take a deep breath and just, inhale and exhale and think before we say anything. Is this the proper time? Should I wait? Can I just let it slip them a text message and a note to say, hey, we need to talk? Nothing bad. Just want us to kind of resolve something that I don't feel, has been resolved to the best of our abilities, that we can do it.
Fantastic. Veronica, it's just such a delight to learn with you and to converse with you. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. If viewers wanted to reach out to you, what would be a way that they could contact you direct?
Yes, if you want to reach out to me, you can reach me by, if you go on Facebook, it'd be Alliance Seminars Coaching, or either via email at allianceseminars.org. And that's one word, allianceseminars.org. I'll be glad to talk to anyone, help you, because what we try to do is we coach families, or we coach couples and through getting engaged and during the hiccup phase. And I like to use hiccup because sometimes it's just a little challenge that we got to get over. And we just sometimes need a mediator to help us to see it, in a different light, because we're just so zoned in on how we view things. And then we also provide leadership training as well, along with the workshops. And we're available for anyone that may be interested in just wanting to be empowered and equipped to live a fulfilled life.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And I encourage everyone to reach out for support. Just reach out. The more support.
Just reach out.
Yeah, I would. I love it. Thank you. I'm so glad that we connected. And thanks to everyone listening and watching today for connecting into the Healing Broken Families podcast, where I host conversations on divorce, parental alienation, and high conflict personalities, but seem to have a big focus on healing this year, healing our families and our hearts. So blessings to you, and thank you so much. Until next time.